Mixing with Mike career building tip, adapting to a situation. So I had a session recently with someone, and it was really interesting. It really reminded me and taught me of a valuable lesson that I learned in studio. And that was, as an engineer, I sometimes had to take on many different roles as an engineer in order to be successful. There were times where I was, if I disappeared from a room, probably nobody would have noticed other than things stopped working. In other words, I was very quiet. It was not my role. There were many big voices in the room. Everything seemed to be well in control. The session was flowing smoothly, and all I needed to do was just to facilitate the process. And that's the job of an engineer. However, sometimes as an engineer, you walk into a session and you're maybe working with a group of people who are producing themselves, a band or that kind of thing, and they are completely clueless about what they're doing. Nobody is really taking charge, and everybody looks confused. In which case, as an engineer, although it's not specifically your job to produce it, the way that you actually become valuable is by filling the role that's not being filled in the room. So you're adapting to the situation. So in that role, you're going to be more vocal. You're going to kind of direct people and guide them into where they should be. It's like, okay, you should be out there, you should be over here. This is what you're listening for. This is what you're going for, and instruct them and teach them how to, and give them direction in whatever way that they need direction. So if you're in a session where everybody is flipping out and freaking out, then you need to be the person who is completely stable and holding the whole session together and pulling it together and making it happen. And if you're in a room where everybody is like completely clueless, then you need to be the freak out person who kind of gets everybody into shape and gets things going. And your ability to adapt that way as a producer or as an engineer is a huge part of your success. What you want to walk away with when people work with you, what the takeaway that people have, and everybody has a takeaway. Whatever you go to a movie, you have a takeaway. You have an opinion about it, right? Good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is, okay? When people walk away from working with you, you want them to be able to say that every time I work with this guy, everything turns out great. Everything turns out right. No matter what the situation is, it really turns out amazing. And because that gives you value, right? And that's how you build a reputation. It's like every time I work with this guy, we come out with something sounding great, okay? And every time it's different, and every time there's different problems, and they always seem to get solved. And that's easier said than done, but it's always something that you want to strive for. So when you end up in a situation where things don't go as you would like, and that happened to me just the other day, as I was talking about, where the person I was working with sort of was freaked out, right? And it was really like a simple voiceover thing. And it was meant to be an interview, and the interviewer couldn't make it. Long story, but they couldn't make it. So we were in a situation where there were basically a couple things that needed to be done. And the one main thing was the interview, and the secondary thing were these voiceovers that were going to be done to these particular, like a PowerPoint presentation or slide. And the person just kind of freaked out. Like they just not like they lost it or anything like that, but they just um, lost all their confidence, lost all their fluidity, and they were sitting there in front of a microphone, kind of and I think I took on about 10 different roles in trying to figure out a way to kind of get this person's vitality back up and their confidence back up to do it, and I couldn't do it. But it was a real lesson to me in how many things and how many methods that I had to try and kind of go through to try to get something out. And we ended up getting something that's, usable in the end. And that was the best I was going to be able to get out of this person. But that was really the takeaway. It's that all I can do is just get the best out. So if somebody completely freaks out and panics, there's only maybe so far that you can lift them up. So you go as far as you can in terms of lifting them up and making the best out of a bad situation. But whatever the case is, you always want to be able to assess what's going on very quickly and make a good decision about how to approach it, how to adapt to that situation. Eventually, it just becomes natural. And I think most people act that way, right? And if you walk into a room where everybody's freaking out, your natural tendency is like, okay, how can I stabilize the situation? How can I keep everybody from killing each other here, right? So people do that naturally. Bring those same skills into a recording situation when you're working with people, and always have as your mindset the whatever it takes to make it sound great. That's the idea. That's what you want to walk away with. Anyway, so there's my mixing with my career building tip: adapting to any and all music production situations.